At 8:47 that morning, deep beneath the Atlantic swells, the USS Leviathan received a call no submarine commander ever wants to hear. A French research vessel, Cousteau, trapped at 285 meters, its ballast systems destroyed, its crew of 12, including students, running out of air. For Commander Alexandra Lex Morgan, the numbers were merciless. 285 meters wasn't just beyond the limits of most rescue vessels. It was 45 meters deeper than her own submarine was ever meant to go. Her orders were clear. Stand by, wait for NATO. But waiting meant death. Every calculation screamed risk. 134 American sailors under her command, a $2.8 billion submarine at stake. And on the other side, 12 civilians. One of them, a 16-year-old girl whose father's voice shook over the radio. The Navy called it impossible. But Lex Morgan had already sworn, after one impossible rescue years ago, that she would never again let impossible decide who lived and who died. This was no longer about protocol. It was about courage, under crushing pressure, steel, bone, and will tested to the breaking point. What began as just another routine patrol that morning would, within minutes, turn the Leviathan into the stage for the deepest rescue attempt in submarine history. The control room of USS Leviathan hummed with the familiar symphony of a nuclear submarine at patrol depth. Commander Alexandra Lex Morgan stood behind the periscope array, her auburn hair pulled back in precise military regulation, emerald eyes scanning the sonar displays with the intensity that had become her trademark throughout the submarine force. At 37 years old, she commanded one of the Navy's most advanced Virginia-class submarines with the quiet confidence that came from years of proving herself in a world where every decision was scrutinized twice as carefully and every success had to be earned against odds her male counterparts never faced. The morning watch had settled into the comfortable rhythm of Atlantic patrol operations. USS Leviathan was conducting advanced training exercises 200 miles southwest of the Azores, pushing both crew and submarine through scenarios designed to test their limits while maintaining the safety margins that kept 134 souls alive in the crushing depths of the ocean. Coffee brewed in the galley, off-duty crew members read in their bunks, and the endless cycle of submarine life continued with practiced efficiency. Sonar contact bearing 270 called Sonar Technician First Class Emma Walsh, her young voice cutting through the electronic whispers that filled the control room. At 24, Walsh represented the new generation of submariners, technically brilliant, fearlessly curious, and absolutely devoted to her captain. Single screw, diesel engine signature. Acoustic profile suggests a research vessel, ma'am. Definitely civilian configuration. Classification confidence? Lex asked, moving to stand behind Walsh's station, where multiple screens displayed the acoustic signature of a vessel, making slow progress through the Atlantic swells. The sonar waterfall showed the distinctive pattern of a ship conducting methodical operations rather than simple transit. High confidence on civilian research vessel, Captain. Engine rhythms suggest they're conducting station-keeping operations, possibly scientific equipment deployment, based on acoustic signature analysis and our current position relative to the Azores archipelago. I'd estimate French or Portuguese registry, Walsh replied, her fingers dancing across the sonar controls with practiced ease. Maintain course and speed, Lex ordered, her voice carrying the authority that had earned her the respect and loyalty of her crew. Continue monitoring their activities, but maintain standard patrol protocols. Lieutenant Commander Nathan Cross, her executive officer, approached from the navigation plotting table with a tablet displaying the morning's routine reports. Clean-shaven according to Navy regulations, the 35-year-old officer had initially approached his assignment with natural caution about serving under a female commander. Those doubts had evaporated during their first emergency drill together, when Lex had demonstrated tactical thinking that impressed even the most skeptical veterans. Ma'am, morning reports are complete. All systems showing optimal performance, Cross reported, his military bearing evident in every gesture. Engineering reports the reactor operating at peak efficiency. Weapons systems are green and fully operational. Navigation is on schedule for the advanced maneuvering exercise scheduled at 1400 hours. And crew morale continues to be outstanding. Lex nodded, accepting the tablet and quickly scanning the detailed morning reports that painted a picture of a submarine operating at the highest levels of efficiency. Everything was exactly as it should be aboard a well-run nuclear submarine. The complex integration of technology, training, and human expertise that made underwater operations possible. "How are the new crew members integrating?" she asked, her attention divided between the reports and the subtle sounds that told her everything about her submarine's condition. "Exceptionally well, ma'am." Walsh continues to exceed all expectations at sonar. Her detection ranges are consistently 20% above class averages. The engineering team has reduced routine maintenance time by 15% through improved procedures. And Cross paused, allowing himself a small smile. Scuttlebutt indicates the crew has started referring to this boat as Lucky Lex's Leviathan. The compliment was disguised as casual information, but both officers understood its significance. Submarine crews were among the most demanding audiences in the military, notoriously difficult to impress and quick to identify leadership weaknesses. Earning a nickname that combined affection with confidence was an achievement that couldn't be manufactured. It had to be earned through competence demonstrated under pressure. "Let's hope our luck holds through the exercise schedule," Lex replied, though she appreciated the sentiment more than she would admit. In her experience, luck was what happened when thorough preparation met unexpected challenges. Senior Chief Petty Officer Michael Kane, the boat's chief of the boat and a 20-year Navy veteran, monitored his stations with calm efficiency. At 42, Kane represented the institutional knowledge that kept submarines operational, the experience base that bridged officers who made decisions and enlisted personnel who executed them. But in exactly 7 minutes, an emergency transmission would shatter the morning routine and test every limit they had ever trained to overcome. At precisely 0847 hours, the emergency communication crackled through the radio, cutting through routine operations like a blade. Kane immediately identified the international distress frequency and patched the signal to the control room with automatic efficiency. "Mayday, Mayday. This is French research vessel Cousteau. We are at coordinates 38 degrees, 12 minutes north, 29 degrees, 42 minutes west, experiencing complete ballast system failure at 285 meters depth. Repeat, total loss of ballast control. 12 souls aboard, including civilian researchers and student participants. Life support systems estimate 8 hours maximum. Request immediate assistance from any vessel capable of deep water rescue operations. Our position is unstable and deteriorating." The heavily accented English carried controlled urgency of someone fighting to maintain professional composure while facing circumstances that could rapidly become fatal. The control room fell silent except for the constant background of submarine operations, ventilation systems, electronic monitoring equipment, and the distant vibration of the nuclear reactor. Every submariner understood exactly what those coordinates and depth readings meant. 285 meters was beyond the operational depth of virtually every rescue vessel in the Atlantic Ocean. More significantly, it was 45 meters beyond the official safe operating depth of USS Leviathan, pushing into dangerous territory where water pressure could crush steel hulls. Cross immediately moved to the navigation station, plotting the exact coordinates. "Ma'am, those coordinates place them directly over the Monaco Deep Canyon system. It's a steep underwater cliff that drops from 200 meters to over 2,000 meters in less than half a mile. If their vessel shifts position or loses structural integrity, they could slip into water depths that would make rescue impossible." "Distance to their position," Lex asked, her mind shifting into emergency response mode. Years of training had taught her to compartmentalize emotional reactions and focus on actionable intelligence. "Approximately 23 nautical miles northeast of our current position," Cross replied. "At maximum flank speed, we could reach their position in approximately 41 minutes. Walsh turned from her sonar station. "Captain, I'm monitoring their emergency beacon. Signal is strong and consistent, suggesting their communication systems remain operational. That's typically positive for overall hull integrity." Kane approached from his monitoring station. "Ma'am, if they've lost ballast control at that depth, they're essentially trapped on the bottom with no ability to surface and limited capability to control position. They're sitting ducks in one of the most dangerous underwater terrain features in the Atlantic." What Commander Morgan didn't know was that this rescue would push her submarine beyond every safety margin ever tested. Lex moved to the communications station, hands steady despite adrenaline beginning to flow as she prepared to contact fleet operations. This was the moment when submarine commanders earned their rank, not during comfortable routine operations, but in split-second decisions that could save lives and careers, or both. Sublent, this is USS Leviathan. We have received a Mayday distress call from French research vessel Cousteau. Request permission to respond and provide emergency assistance. Her voice carried calm professionalism, revealing none of the complex risk calculations running through her mind. The reply came within minutes that felt like hours. Captain Robert Blake, Fleet Operations Commander, crackled through the encrypted channel with institutional authority and bureaucratic caution. Leviathan, this is Fleet Ops. We are tracking the situation through NATO maritime coordination. French Navy estimates 6 hours minimum for their nearest deepwater rescue vessel. Their closest submarine with deepwater capability is in port at Brest, undergoing maintenance. What is your assessment of rescue capability at the reported depth? The question carried implications everyone understood. Blake wasn't asking for technical specifications. He was asking Lex to make a command judgment that could cost lives, careers, and a $2.8 billion submarine. Cross moved closer. Ma'am, the French vessel is at 285 meters. That's beyond our documented safe operating parameters. Virginia-class maximum operational depth is officially 240 meters, with emergency protocols allowing operations up to 365 meters under extreme circumstances, which means 285 meters puts us in the gray zone. Lex replied quietly, "Dangerous territory, but not immediately fatal. Our hull crush depth is calculated at approximately 430 meters. At 285 meters, we'd be operating at roughly 66% of maximum pressure tolerance." Kane approached. "Captain, I've served submarines for 20 years. The Virginia class represents the most robust platform the Navy has ever built. If any submarine can handle that depth, it's this one." Walsh turned from her station. "Ma'am, they mentioned student participants. I have a teenage daughter myself." The implication hung clear. Sometimes risk assessment had to be balanced against human cost of inaction. The next decision would either make Commander Morgan a hero or end everything she had worked for. Sublent, USS Leviathan. We assess that rescue operations at 285 meters depth are within our emergency operational capabilities. Request permission to proceed with immediate emergency response. Lex's voice carried confidence from years of pushing boundaries and succeeding where others had failed. A long pause filled the control room. In those moments, Lex could hear every sound of her submarine. Gentle whoosh of air circulation, distant hum of the nuclear reactor, quiet beeping of monitoring systems. These were sounds of life support for 134 American sailors, all of whom would share the risk if the rescue went wrong. Then Blake's voice returned, tense with command decisions that could be scrutinized by admirals and politicians for years. "Leviathan, be advised, we are discussing 12 French nationals against 134 American service members. The mathematical risk assessment does not favor this operation. We are talking about risking a $2.8 billion submarine and some of the Navy's finest personnel." "Sir, I understand the mathematical analysis," Lex replied, voice steady but carrying determination her crew recognized. "However, the mathematics also include 16-year-old Sophie Dubois, participating in a summer marine biology program with the French National Institute. Sometimes the most important mathematics isn't measured in dollars or statistical probabilities." Cross watched his captain with growing admiration. He had seen her make difficult decisions during their service together, but this was different. This transcended submarine operations or Navy protocols. This was about fundamental reasons they had all chosen to serve, to protect and save lives when others couldn't. Another pause, longer and filled with tension. Somewhere in fleet operations, Blake was weighing risks, considering consequences, making calculations that would be examined if things went wrong. "Permission granted, Leviathan. But Morgan, this is your command decision and your full responsibility. Complete accountability falls on your leadership. The French government has been notified through diplomatic channels. NATO maritime coordination is standing by to assist with surface operations once you complete the rescue attempt." "Understood, Sublent." Full accountability acknowledged. USS Leviathan out. As communication ended, Lex felt the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. She had just committed her submarine and crew to an operation that would push every safety margin they had ever trained for. As USS Leviathan raced toward the impossible rescue, none of them realized how close they were to making naval history. "All hands, this is the captain," Lex announced over the ship's communication system. "We are responding to an emergency rescue operation at maximum operational depth. This mission will push our submarine and crew to operational limits we have trained for extensively, but never executed under actual emergency conditions. I need every one of you performing at 100% of your capabilities. Chief Kane, initiate emergency depth protocols immediately." The response was immediate and unanimous. From the engine room to the torpedo compartment, from the galley to the navigation center, 134 voices acknowledged the order with professional efficiency. Not one question about risks, not one hesitation about dangers, not one voice expressing doubt. They trusted Commander Morgan completely. "Ma'am," Walsh called from the sonar station, "I have solid contact on the French research vessel Cousteau, bearing 268, range 18,000 yards and decreasing. She is definitely stationary on the bottom at 285 meters depth, and I'm detecting what sounds like intermittent hull stress groaning. Their vessel is under significant pressure strain and may be approaching structural integrity limits." Cross moved to Lex's side. "Captain, the crew is with you 100%. We've trained extensively for deep water rescue operations. We've studied the engineering specifications, and we understand our submarine's capabilities. But I have to ask, are you completely certain about attempting this depth?" Lex looked at her executive officer, seeing her own concerns and unwavering resolve reflected in his eyes. Nathan Cross had become more than her second-in-command. He had become her tactical conscience, the voice that asked hard questions when command decisions could cost lives. "Nathan, 3 years ago, I watched 14 American sailors nearly die in a flooded reactor compartment because everyone said their rescue was technically impossible. Radiation levels that should have been immediately fatal, water depths that should have been impassable, technical challenges that engineering manuals categorized as unsurvivable. I swore that day that impossible was never going to be good enough when American lives, or Allied lives, were at stake." She was referring to the incident that had earned her the Navy and Marine Corps Medal and the respect of every submariner in the fleet. That day, she had voluntarily risked fatal radiation exposure to save sailors trapped in conditions that official protocols declared hopeless. Today, we're going to prove that 285 meters is just another number on a depth gauge. What happened next would test every system, every skill, and every prayer aboard USS Leviathan. The transformation of USS Leviathan from patrol to rescue vessel was carefully orchestrated. Kane coordinated with department chiefs as systems optimized for deep operations. "Emergency depth protocols," Lex ordered. "Secure non-essential systems. Redirect power to structural integrity." "Aye, Captain," Kane responded. Within minutes, non-critical lighting dimmed, air conditioning minimized, recreational equipment powered down, every amp redirected to critical systems. "Reactor optimal for deep operations," Cross reported. "Diving officer, make your depth 285 meters. Descent rate 5 meters per minute." As they descended, hull stress indicators climbed steadily. 240 meters, passing official operational depth. 270 meters, entering red zone but within tolerance. 285 meters, target depth achieved. At 270 meters, something unexpected appeared on sonar that changed everything. "Ma'am!" Walsh suddenly called from her sonar station, voice cutting through routine depth reports with urgency. "Multiple sonar contacts bearing 190, 3 surface vessels approaching our position at high speed." Acoustic signatures consistent with French Navy rescue ships. Cross quickly moved to the plotting table, calculating implications of this new information. "Captain, if the French Navy is deploying multiple rescue vessels, they might have deep water rescue capabilities that weren't available when we received the original distress call." For a moment, Lex considered implications that could change everything about their mission. They were risking a $2.8 billion submarine and 134 lives when conventional rescue might be possible. But Walsh provided critical information that clarified their situation. Captain, based on detailed acoustic analysis of their engine signatures and hull characteristics, those are standard surface rescue vessels. No deep submergence capability detected. Estimated time of arrival to rescue position: 4 hours minimum, assuming optimal sea conditions. 4 hours. The French research vessel had reported 8 hours of life support when they first transmitted their Mayday call. By the time conventional surface rescue could arrive and deploy whatever limited deep water capabilities they possessed, the Cousteau would have maybe 4 hours of life support remaining, assuming perfect conditions, no equipment failures, and no delays. 260 meters, the diving officer reported. Hull stress indicators entering yellow zone but remaining within acceptable tolerance levels. 270 meters, Captain. Hull stress monitoring shows we are entering the red zone, but all readings remain within calculated tolerance levels for emergency operations. 285 meters, Captain. We have reached target depth and are maintaining position. What Commander Morgan saw through the external cameras would haunt her for the rest of her life. The external camera systems activated automatically, and hull-mounted high-intensity lights pierced the absolute darkness of the deep Atlantic, like searchlights probing an alien world. At 285 meters below the surface, sunlight was nothing but distant memory, and crushing pressure of the ocean created an environment more hostile than outer space. In the circle of illumination projected by USS Leviathan's external lighting systems, the French research vessel Cousteau sat on a narrow ledge of the underwater canyon, like a white metal coffin against the dark, rocky bottom. The vessel appeared intact but was clearly in desperate condition, listing slightly to starboard and showing signs of tremendous pressure it was enduring. There, Lex breathed, pointing to the main display screen showing thermal imaging results. I count 12 distinct heat signatures through thermal analysis. All appear to be alive and showing normal body temperature readings. The French vessel was structurally intact, but obviously helpless. Its ballast tank systems had failed completely, making it impossible to surface under its own power. Even worse, the narrow ledge it rested on showed clear signs of instability. Loose rocks and sediment indicated that any significant movement could send the research vessel tumbling into the 2,000-meter abyss that yawned just beyond their precarious position. Captain Cross observed, voice carrying weight of tactical analysis. We're going to have to establish direct physical contact to transfer personnel safely. That means maneuvering a 377-foot nuclear submarine in a space that's barely large enough for their research vessel. And we're attempting this at crush depth, Kane added quietly, weathered face reflecting gravity of their situation. Lex nodded, fully understanding the magnitude of the challenge they were facing. But as she watched the thermal signatures of 12 human beings trapped in that metal tube on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, her resolve only grew stronger. The rescue attempt that followed would either become the greatest success in submarine history or a tragedy that would end careers and lives. Communications established direct contact with the French vessel immediately. Within moments, a heavily accented but clear French voice filled the control room through their underwater communication systems. "This is Dr. Philippe Dubois aboard the research vessel Cousteau. Who is speaking, please?" "Dr. Dubois, this is Commander Alexandra Morgan, United States Navy, aboard USS Leviathan. We are here to get you and your team out of this situation safely." The relief in the French scientist's voice was unmistakable and emotionally overwhelming. "Commander Morgan, we have 12 persons aboard, including my daughter Sophie and 2 graduate research colleagues. Our ballast control system has failed completely. We cannot surface under our own power, and our position appears to be deteriorating." "Understood completely, Doctor. We are going to attempt a personnel transfer using our emergency escape trunk system. This will require each member of your team to make a short underwater transit from your vessel to our submarine." A pause filled with the weight of what that meant, swimming through 285 meters of crushing Atlantic water. Then Dubois spoke again, voice steady despite circumstances that would terrify most people. "Commander, I must inform you, we are at 285 meters depth. Is this not far beyond your submarine's safe operating parameters?" Lex looked around the control room at her crew. Young Walsh, monitoring sonar with unwavering concentration, experienced Kane overseeing systems with calm professionalism, Steady Cross, coordinating operations with tactical precision. Each face reflected the same quiet determination and absolute confidence in their captain. Doctor, sometimes safe operating parameters are just suggestions when lives are at stake. The actual rescue operation required precision that bordered on the miraculous and seamanship that pushed every limit of submarine operations. Lex maneuvered USS Leviathan to within 3 meters of the research vessel, close enough to establish a physical underwater connection between the submarine's escape trunk systems, while maintaining enough distance to avoid a collision that could be fatal to both vessels. Chief Kane, prepare the rescue chamber for emergency personnel transfer. I want transfer teams of 2 persons maximum, with a 3-minute time limit per transfer operation. Aye, Captain. Rescue teams are standing by and prepared for emergency operations. The rescue chamber represented one of the most sophisticated pieces of equipment aboard any submarine. A pressurized compartment that could be connected to external vessels for emergency personnel transfer. At 285 meters depth, operating this system pushed every engineering specification to its absolute limit. One by one, the French researchers made the terrifying journey through 285 meters of black Atlantic water. Dr. Marie Laurent, a marine biologist in her 30s, came first, followed by Captain Jean-Claude Moreau, the research vessel's experienced master. Each transfer tested both the rescuers and the rescued, requiring courage that went beyond normal human experience and technical execution that demanded perfection from every piece of equipment. Sophie Dubois is preparing for transfer, Dr. Dubois reported through the underwater communication system. The 16-year-old girl who had started this journey as an excited participant in a summer marine biology program was now swimming for her life through the crushing depths of the Atlantic Ocean. Transfer complete, Kane reported as Sophie Dubois entered USS Leviathan's escape trunk, her young face pale but determined. Remarkable courage throughout the entire process from the young lady. Dr. Antoine Rousseau, the mission geologist, followed next, then Dr. Claire Fontaine, the marine archaeology specialist. Each transfer brought them closer to complete success, but also tested the structural integrity of both vessels, operating far beyond their design parameters. The remaining team members followed in carefully orchestrated sequence. Marine biologists, research technicians, and graduate students who had volunteered for what was supposed to be a routine research mission, but had become a fight for survival in the deepest waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Finally, Dr. Philippe Dubois himself made the crossing, insisting on being the last person to leave his vessel in the finest tradition of maritime leadership. As he entered USS Leviathan's escape trunk, the research vessel Cousteau shifted ominously on its precarious ledge and began sliding toward the abyss. All personnel successfully recovered, Captain, Cross reported with obvious relief and pride. 12 French nationals are safe aboard our submarine. Diving officer, emergency ascent to periscope depth immediately. Make your depth 20 meters. As USS Leviathan rose from the depths of the Atlantic, leaving behind what would be recorded as the deepest submarine rescue in naval history, Lex allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had pushed beyond every established limit, risked everything they had trained for, and brought everyone home safely. 3 hours later, USS Leviathan surfaced in the Atlantic swells under a brilliant afternoon sun that felt like a blessing after the darkness of the deep ocean. The French Navy vessels had arrived and were standing by to receive the rescued researchers. As the survivors prepared to transfer to their countrymen's ships, Dr. Dubois approached Lex on the submarine's bridge. "Commander Morgan," he said, voice thick with emotion he was no longer trying to hide, "you and your crew have accomplished what everyone said was completely impossible. Sophie tells me she wants to join the United States Navy because of what she witnessed today. Courage that goes beyond duty." Lex smiled, looking out at the vast Atlantic that had tested them all and proven that limits existed only until someone was brave enough to exceed them. "Doctor, we just did what submariners have always done. We brought everyone home, no matter what it took." The secure communication system crackled with an incoming message from Fleet Operations. "USS Leviathan, this is Sublint. Admiral Rachel Sterling sends her personal congratulations on a textbook rescue operation that exceeded all expectations. Also be advised, your actions today have been forwarded to the Secretary of the Navy for consideration of unit commendation and individual recognition. Cross appeared at Lex's side, wearing the broad grin that came with successful completion of an impossible mission. Ma'am, scuttlebutt from Fleet Communications suggests they're seriously discussing your promotion to captain. The promotion can wait, Lex replied, watching as Sophie Dubois waved goodbye from the French rescue vessel, her young face glowing with admiration and newfound purpose. Today, we proved that impossible is just another word for untested and that the right crew can accomplish anything. As USS Leviathan submerged once again into the familiar embrace of the Atlantic depths, her crew carried with them the knowledge that they had pushed beyond every established boundary and emerged stronger than ever before. At 285 meters below the surface, they had not just rescued 12 lives, they had redefined what was possible for submarine operations. 6 months later, Captain Alexandra Morgan stood in the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes, receiving the Navy Distinguished Service Medal from the Secretary of the Navy himself. The citation read, "For extraordinary leadership and exceptional courage in conducting the deepest submarine rescue in naval history, successfully saving 12 lives while operating far beyond established safety parameters and demonstrating the highest traditions of naval service." But the recognition that meant the most to her sat framed on her desk back at Naval Base San Diego, a handwritten letter from Sophie Dubois, now a first-year midshipman at the United States Naval Academy, with a simple message: "Thank you for showing me that impossible is just the starting point for heroes." In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, where pressure can crush steel and darkness reigns eternal, USS Leviathan had proven that with exceptional leadership, advanced training, unwavering determination, and absolute trust between a captain and crew, there are no impossible rescues, only untested limits waiting to be surpassed by those brave enough to try.